Good afternoon, and thank you, Tina, for inviting me to be here today and talk about 3D printing and if this will shape our future. So I start a little bit, of course, it's new for you. It has been a lot of trends that are changing the way that we do a lot of things. And I mean, it's the example of all the apps today that you can control your nutrition state. You can, check if you train, how much did you train, and so on, and it helps you to keep kind of healthy living. So it's about like Facebook, all the social aspects, positive and negative, as we know. I mean, Tesla and towards sustainability is major in agenda. Very much also about individualization. So we want to satisfy our own interests. And of course, there's also a lot of interest towards these experiences. We want to experience new things. And I mean, and my colleague, Alexandra Scholter from BSH, and we'll learn later what it's about, she made this picture, which I also fully agree that, I mean, 3D printing meets some of these mega trends. And also some of these growing consumer needs today. I mean, healthy living, you have possibilities to modify your nutritional content, for example, with the foods. About connecting, I mean, you can connect through recipes and things like that, as we'll see later on. I mean, sustainability, maybe the ingredients that you choose for your 3D printing. Individualization can be quite individual, as we'll see later on. And of course, it will also give a lot of these new experiences. And I will show a little bit what I think. And I start a little bit thinking in the future, maybe. Let's see that we are 2030. I don't know where these wireless cars will come, but let's say somewhere there. And then maybe you are sitting in the car on the way home, on the way from work, going home. And you don't have to drive, but you have your tablets, you have computers, whatever. And in fact, you can connect to a program app where allows you to choose and design your dinner. And in fact, it may come a time that, in fact, you get information about the nutritional state of all your family members. So in fact, you can eventually, in such situation, take into account this, that there is some specific needs. So you can then customize the dinner for your family members. You can then press a button, and then when you come home, your 3D printer has printed like full developed, full personalized meal, let's say, for each of your family members, where you then can easily enjoy. Will this be the future? I don't know, in fact. But of course, it is possible, and things are developing quite fast in 3D printing. And I start a little bit telling a story. I mean, how it started, and according to the information I have been around and heard, it was about this time, it was Christmas time at TNU, that is a research institute in Holland, and they got as a Christmas basket some kind of chocolate powder. I heard that was Nesquik. And then someone decided, why don't we try it in our printer, because they were doing a lot of research, in fact, with other applications. And they just tried to put Nesquik in this powder printer at the time, and they start making this kind of first shapes, as I heard. And of course, after that, it started a little bit research here and there, but TNO has been quite leading this. But I think, as I see it, when things start to really get interesting in 3D printing was when Barilla, together with TNO at Expo in Milano, at the Italian pavilion, had a 3D printing pasta. And it was an enormous interest from the consumers or from the public to see this 3D printing pasta. I don't know if someone of you have seen it, if you were there. So it grew a lot of interest, and of course it was quite medium at the time. But in fact, after that, it started really to happen a lot, I think. So, I mean, today, for example, Barilla, a spin-off further for this project, has started a company, an independent company. It's called Blue Raposi, and they are producing these different pastas with the different shapes. So as you see, so they design specific design shapes to create great dishes. So it's quite focus on restaurants, but it could also be parties and things like that. So beautiful pasta, small things, or some can be a little bit larger. They allow you also to personalize, in fact. So you can even tailor-made your specific pasta. You can choose the color and the forms and so on. So you can really be creative and create things. And you know, people like to organize parties and organize new things. So this gives a lot of this possibility to, do, as they say, unforgettable dishes. And this is, of course, one concrete example with the pasta, but there are many other examples, and chocolate has also been quite one of the first from the beginning, and some people say, yeah, of course, it's easy to 3D print chocolate. It's not that easy, but of course, with large companies also with interest. And in chocolate, of course, the idea is you have to mold a chocolate to give a given form. And it's not possible to do things like this how do you go back? So easily. So you can shape and you can create shapes with 3D structures that otherwise would not be possible. So it gives a freedom of creating new things. It starts new companies, so this is one quite recently, and this it will be interesting to see where they go. But basically, they do this 3D printing of candies at shops, so they are selling quite a lot. I mean, the kids find quite interesting, so they can, in fact, choose which figures do they want, what colors. So there is a number of programs there that they can really have fun, and they have a lot of fun in this. So the company is also now quite specialized on this, as I mentioned, about parties and special personalized activities. So restaurants. So and this is quite recent, in fact, it seems now the first 3D print food restaurant has opened in the Netherlands. And it's pasta again, but they can create like this special, how should I say, give some kind of experience. And of course what they do is that they print this shell and then you can fill in with different sauces and so on. So this is also out now, and basically it's like 3 years since Expo. NASA got a lot of interest also, and this pizza printing of pizza became also like a interesting thing, which I, in fact, to be honest, never expected. But basically, the astronauts now are able to print the pizza, and NASA has invested quite a lot of money on this. But it's also starting to create a lot of business ideas around pizza. Like, as I heard, I didn't find the information, but I heard that Nantes in France has opened, in fact, the first takeaway pizzeria where everything is done on internet, and then you have 3D printers that, in fact, print the pizza, so you go there, so it's one person working. The rest is done by robotics, in fact, in some way. I come back to this. But of course, to enable this, it means that also a lot of equipment has to be developed. And of course, maybe it comes here, the interest. So it has been growing, the number of 3D printers that are available now. They are not extremely expensive, so this is just some examples for very simple ones where you just have like a cartridge. It is one that you don't see, but gives you also possibilities to further processing, like cook afterwards, for example, or others that you can, for example, print more things in cups, for example. So then it becomes also the interest of these big players. So I talked about Alexandra before. This BSH, who is producing home suppliers like from Bosch, is one of the brands that they commercialize. And they see also 3D printing in their concept of this connecting home with your mobile. So then they start also to develop a printer that is able to, print and bake and fill, and they want very much that this experience and the possibility to provide these multi-component snacks, and right now is still quite a lot on these small things that you can print. But they are out, this first prototype is out, and they are quite investing a lot in this, so let's see where it brings. And then I talk about robotics. Of course, if we think about industrialization of 3D printing, it cannot be in these small machines. Then robotics becomes quite a much faster way and much precise way to do things. So you connect, in fact, both these robotics with 3D printing heads, as it can be said. And this is also available now. In fact, this company, Staubli, has showed in a congress that I attended recently, in fact, this industrial production of chocolate with robotics. And the idea, once again, is to make shapes that otherwise are not possible with the normal production methods. But of course, maybe you ask what's the science behind this, or maybe the technology. And of course, it's about material properties in terms of food. So if we want to 3D print food, we need to have the right properties. So it's not, if we want to have a biscuit that has to be printed, the dough does not have necessarily to be the same that you have a dough that does not have to do printing. So there are modifications in the way that you formulate that are needed in order to be able to 3D printing. Then, of course, it's also quite a lot about equipment, how this 3D printing process should be done, and I come back a little bit more. But of course, it's also important to think about what's the novel concept that you are creating. Not everything will be 3D printing in the future, so there you need to find the right applications. So regarding equipment, I mean, the most common nowadays in terms of food application is this extrusion-based printing. And basically used like for these high viscous materials, like those cheese emulsions, I mean chocolate as well. So you have, as I showed before, like a piston where you put your product, this is pressed, and then you can build this layer by layer product. And of course, these properties of the material that have to stand this well-defining layer per layer building. But there are also other techniques like laser sintering and like binder jetting that are used, for example, for powder products, like the first one, as Tien, who tested from the beginning. But I mean, there is other techniques also merging, like ink jet, because then you don't need to have, you can use for products that have less viscosity. But of course, what we think about here is quite a lot about when we need to optimize. I mean, the speed of the printer is quite important. It will define how well the shape can be done. If you want these very beautiful and well-defined shapes. But of course, a major issue has been this. I mean, are we going to wait 15 minutes to get a pasta pizza? So it's still a lot to be done also. And I mean, Barilla, how they solve the problem is that they increase the number of pieces that they print at the same time. And this, of course, is a way to reduce the time. But still, most of this 3D printing is still quite slow. So maybe you need to take the car and get a lot of traffic before you get home. So you have, of course, this a lot developed now in companies looking for, what kind of food formulations you have to do to provide these cartridges to be printed. So, and there are already small niches, as I said, chocolate is one of them. But of course, the formulation depends very much what you want to do. And now I just give a little bit some examples, like, I mean, a lot of things that are out now or that people are able is quite a lot about making shapes. And I mean, this is sugar. It's also quite easy or relatively easy to do very special sugar pieces that are designed. Now it starts a lot of interest on these pancakes and small biscuits for kids, because then you can have on the down of the printer like a pan where you cook at the same time. So this post-processing, but it's still quite a lot about making shapes. But of course, in the future, we see possibilities also of this to create unique textures. Things that you cannot do if you produce it in a factory, and then you have to ship, and then it takes, 2 weeks, and so on. So when the product gets there, then it doesn't look anymore the same. You know, like in this type of products, for example, if you try to get a dance or a part here that has hard texture with something that has a soft texture, with the time, things tend to equilibrate water mass transport, for example. So these products have to be kind of consumed in a short time. But of course, it gives you also a lot of possibilities now, both to design special structures, the special porosities, but also to create different textures at both macro and structural level, micro and macro structural level. And if we look at this powder printing, of course, we need also to understand a lot of things, how powder, for example, powder beds react when you start to spray liquids. And I mean, what liquids do you need to spray in order to get this solidification that you want to have to create right texture? So it, of course, it opens, all this 3D printing open quite a lot of new doors regarding science and things that we need to know to do it interesting. And of course, that's also part why it became interesting for many researchers. And we start also a project that we are running, is coordinated by Technological Institute and is funded by the Innovation Fund. And the specific idea of the project then is to personalize food for patients that are in the hospital. And we are thinking especially, for example, cancer patients that are under treatment for a long time, and they don't have a lot of appetite because of the disease and the medicine or the therapies. And then at the same time, they need food. If they don't eat properly, they don't recover well. So the idea is to look at the possibilities to design a specific food that is attractive in terms of flavor and texture and maybe small portions, but quite rich in nutrients, because then they eat little, but they can still get what they need with small portions. So this is just some examples. We have been trying to structure some dairy ingredients in order to get nice small cubes that could be snacks. And this is very preliminary work. So, like to finalize a little bit, just refreshing. I mean, I think like this 3D printing has some interesting possibilities in the future in order to produce convenient, customized. I talk about nutrition, variety, freshness. I mean, you can produce the product very close to the consumer. And I think this is something also that's good, because it's this belief that processed food is not good and is done somewhere, so you get close to. So this on-site, but also this creation, the possibility, to do something and to create. And it has been starting a lot of consumer evaluations, and in fact, people are quite positive to 3D printing. And of course, then companies, this is an example from Mondelez, and this Oreo cookies that they did a vending machine where people could just choose the filling on these cookies. As you know, they have double, and then they could choose the flavor that the cookie had. And this was like a major PR event. So everybody talked about was super. And of course, this I think is also what people consider to be interesting. So we are somewhere here. I think, now, in terms of development between making shapes and start to do customization. But of course, there are a lot of interest on these now, and research going on personalized nutrition, on creating textures, and then, of course, maybe the future will be, as I said. I mean, this has been 3 years, and I think it's gone very fast, so I think it goes fast in the coming years. So, and of course, there is this possibility of all the scale, from home, restaurants, as I show, is already there, home service, to industrial production. So the potential is large, I think, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Lilia. I guess it's going to take a while before you can print your burger or steak or something.
I don't know. I think you can print burgers, by the way. The last I heard was beer. In fact, I did not open the link, but it seems that's it, printing beer.
All right.
So I don't know what that means, but
but we're going to use it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, that is also possible.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.